was having coffee with a girlfriend the other day, and we were talking about all of the things in life that we wish we had known earlier that would have saved us a lot of time and money and heartache and trouble and all that kind of stuff along the way. So I thought it would be nice to share some of those things with you today, and maybe it'll help somebody along the way. I have 5 and kind of a 6th bonus one at the end, so stick around. My name's Laura, and let's get started. Number 1, and this is a big one. We spend so much time in the front half of our life chasing things. We all think that, when I get that house, when I get that car, when I get that, expensive piece of clothing or home decor, jewelry, whatever, that somehow that's when I'm going to be happy. I'll feel like I've arrived, like I've made it, so to speak. And we feel a lot of pressure through those years to spend a lot of money on stuff. And when you stop and think about it, why is it? Why is it that somebody would pay, $700 a month car payment for an Audi, just as an example? What is it about that car? Well, that car makes them feel a certain way. They think that people will look at them a certain way and think that they're happy and successful and all that. But the reality is, when you get my age and you look back, you realize none of that stuff actually matters at all. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares about it, and you won't care about it as you get older. So, you spend the first 50 years trying to gather all this stuff because we attach so much, self-validation and emotional value to it, when the reality is it doesn't mean anything. And as you get into your late 50s, you actually reverse course and you start trying to figure out how to get rid of stuff. Because what happens is we gather so much stuff in our lives, it actually makes you feel kind of trapped and claustrophobic. Like, you don't actually need the 10 shovels in the garage, right? So we hang on to stuff, and really it just makes us feel stressed and anxious, and we realize that these things aren't actually important. I think that's why decluttering videos and minimalism videos are so popular on YouTube, because if you can start to declutter, so I guess number 1, what I want to say is, if you're watching this video and you're younger, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, I'm telling you, don't waste your time and money on chasing all of the material things. They won't make you happy, and they don't mean anything. And it really, truly is a waste of your time and a waste of your money. Look for the other things in life that are going to make you feel happy and validated. You're already worthy the way you are. You don't need all this stuff in order to feel worthy. Number 2, if you are over 55 and you haven't started kind of decluttering, I highly recommend it. Not only does it make you feel less stressed, it just makes you feel more spacious in your life. Open those cupboards. If you haven't seen the back of them for years and you've been hanging on to stuff, sometimes as we get older, we think, well, this gadget, it still works pretty good. Maybe we'll need it someday. Well, the truth is, you probably won't. If you haven't used it in the last couple of years and it's still sitting there, you probably won't need it. And the reality is, this is the news for you, nobody else will want it either. Your kids, if you have adult children or other family members, they are not going to want your stuff when you're gone. Trust me. I have had to clean out homes from older family members who passed on, or needed to move out of their home after 30, 40 years. And if you've ever had to go through that, it's so sad to see how much stuff they hung on to that they didn't need and that we don't want. And so what ends up happening is it gets thrown in the garbage. It gets given to the thrift store. It gets dumped. And so, before that happens, it's really useful and helpful even for your family to get rid of that stuff that you don't need anymore. And I'm telling you, you'll be happier for it. The second thing that we talked about was this idea, and it's kind of tied to the first, that experiences were and are way more valuable than the stuff that we've accumulated in our lives. So, at the end of the day, as you get a little bit older, you realize, when I'm on my deathbed, nobody is going to care about what kind of car I drove or how fancy my couch was. They're going to care about the time we spent together, the conversations that we had. And, experiences don't have to be like big, expensive travel things. Like if you can travel, great, but they can be small everyday experiences too. Talking to an old friend, making time to go have coffee together, being out in nature, all of the small little experiences day to day, those are just as important as the big ones. But those things count way more than the stuff does. My husband and I often talk, when we were raising our two kids when they were really young, and we were young in our 30s, struggling financially, trying to get our household set up and so on. And, it was always kind of a point of pride looking back that we did what we had to do to keep the house afloat and, things in order. But, if there was a Saturday and the sun was shining and my husband thought, I really should be working on that fence in the backyard, we would think, what, forget it. We're going to the park instead with the kids. And we're so glad we did that kind of thing. We did what we had to do to keep the fence up. But beyond that, we chose to spend the time with the kids over that stuff. And we're so grateful that we did, because we hang on to those experiences, and those memories now mean more to me than any fence ever did. Because we're both getting close to retirement, my girlfriend and I were talking about number 3, which was that, hey, your job doesn't care about you. Doesn't care about you. So stop and think, how much are you caring about your job? So many of us, our identity, our sense of self-worth, our validation, and isn't it interesting, those are all the same things that we seek from the stuff in our lives. We also think we're going to get it from our jobs. So how often have we introduced ourselves over the years and said, hi, I'm Laura, I'm blah, 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 whatever the career is. And it's so tied to our identity. And so I'm here to tell you at 58 years old, don't sacrifice too much for your job. I see people over the years, they go in on the weekends, they put in all the extra time, they forego vacations, all of that kind of stuff. They dedicate themselves 200% to their jobs. And then they leave, they retire, they pass on, whatever it is. And the sad truth is that your job cares about you for about 10 minutes after you're gone. And then everybody gets on with it, and that's it. So stop and think, if you are that type of person who is sacrificing all the time that you have for your job, I'm letting you know now, your job doesn't care about you. So yes, you want to work with integrity and you want to do a good job, but stop and think about how much time you're sacrificing for that job. And at the end of the day, don't care more about the job than the job cares about you. Number 3 is, in my humble opinion, retire as soon as possible. As soon as you feel financially secure, that you have enough money to retire, you should seriously consider it. Now, of course, everybody needs a retirement plan, not only financially, but over and above the money. I think it's wise to be retiring to something, not just from something. You hear of people retiring and they have no plans, nothing to do. They get depressed, they get sick, they die. Obviously, that's not the way to go. But if you have some plans, what happens, I think, is a lot of us get trapped into thinking, well, I'll just, maybe work another 6 months, or I'll maybe work another year or 2, and then I'll retire. Even though financially they could do it now. If you have saved enough money, yes, it's nice to be able to pass on some money to our children or our family in some way when we're gone, but they will be okay. And don't waste more time than you need to working if you have the chance to retire. Again, on your deathbed, Are you going to care that you stayed at company ABC 2 years longer than you needed to? Or are you going to care more about the time that you took with your family or those experiences that you wanted to have in retirement? Number 5 is stop caring what everybody thinks about you. So when we're younger, again, we're always looking. It's so interesting, isn't it? We're always looking for this external validation, right? We're worried about judgment. We're worried about what people will think of us. And as you get older, you realize that that is just such a waste of energy. And the reality is nobody cares. Nobody cares what you look like. So stop caring what other people think. And I really noticed that when I started to grow my hair. How many years was I so worried about walking out of the house without having my roots colored, thinking, oh my God, somebody's gonna, see me looking like that. And what I realized when I started to grow my hair was nobody cared. Nobody said a word to me. In fact, nobody even looked at me. And as you get older, you kind of go through that where people are not looking at you as much as they used to, and embrace it. It's very freeing actually to realize nobody gives a rip what you look like. And so just embrace it and do what makes you happy and feel good. And don't worry about what other people think. Number 6, a bit of a bonus for you, is focus on your relationships. At the end of the day, it's your relationships that are more important than the stuff, the job, all of those things. And so, those relationships that may have gone sideways when you were younger, if you haven't talked to your sister in 10 years because you thought you were right when you guys had that fight, so long ago and that kind of thing, spend the time to repair those relationships. Give an old friend a call. Put out that olive branch to somebody. Repair those relationships that are important to you, because at the end of the day, you're going to be so happy that you did. So the big takeaways here are, number 1, the stuff doesn't matter. Don't worry about driving the fanciest car, getting, the best house on the block. Those things are not going to make you happy from within. Number 2, focus on the experiences, not the stuff. The experiences are what you will hold dear to your heart as you get older. Don't care about the job too much. Care enough to do what you need to do, but don't sacrifice more than you need to for the job. Number 4 would be retire as soon as you can, as soon as you feel secure and you're able to. Again, don't hang in there working longer than you need to, because you really have a finite amount of time. And number 5 is stop caring what everybody thinks about you. Nobody actually cares nearly as much as we think they do. So embrace it and just do what's going to make you feel happy. And number 6, really focus on the relationships. Every single person I talk to that's older than me says their relationships and their experiences with those loved ones are the most important things that carry them well into the night. So focus on the relationships and make yourself happy from within. My name's Laura. The channel is Midlife Matters. I hope that you'll like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what are the things that you used to worry about that you thought were so important that aren't anymore? I'd really love to hear from you. Okay, thanks so much. We'll see you guys next time.